If you've lived long enough to witness a few financial crises, I believe you understand this truth. Hard work does not always lead to victory, and the financial system is not always on your side. I've worked in the financial industry in the United States for over 2 decades. I've met people who saved their entire lives, trusted banks, trusted the system, only to realize in a single moment that their money was not fully theirs. And that is exactly why today I want to talk to you about Bitcoin. Not as an investment play, not with promises of getting rich quickly, but as a choice of financial sovereignty. Most people, when they hear about Bitcoin, ask the same familiar questions. How high will Bitcoin go? Will the price keep rising? But after years of observation, I've realized something. Those are the questions of the losers. Winners ask a different question. What does Bitcoin help me escape from? Escape from a monetary system where value is eroded every year by inflation. Escape from banks that can freeze your account with a single administrative decision. Escape from having to ask permission to use the very money you worked your entire life to earn. If you buy Bitcoin only to sell it back for dollars, then, honestly, you haven't truly entered this game yet. Because Bitcoin, first and foremost, is not a number on a screen. It is a tool that allows you to take back control, for the first time in modern monetary history. But then I see a major paradox. Many people say they believe in Bitcoin, yet they leave all of their Bitcoin on exchanges. In the US, we have a very direct saying, if you don't control it, you don't own it. Bitcoin held on an exchange is not your Bitcoin. It's just a promise. And financial history has taught us one painful lesson. Promises can disappear overnight. More than $300 billion worth of Bitcoin is currently sitting on centralized exchanges. That is not financial freedom. That is the illusion of ownership. And the truly tragic part is this. Most people don't lose because they lack intelligence. They lose because they choose the easy path instead of the correct one. This video is not for everyone. It's for those who genuinely want to understand what creates winners and what keeps everyone else as permanent spectators. Let's begin with the first rule, because if you misunderstand this, nearly every decision that follows will almost certainly be wrong. Rule 1. Don't start with price. Start with sovereignty. Throughout my career, I've seen countless assets rise and collapse. Stocks, real estate, pension funds. Nothing is immune to cycles. But Bitcoin was not created to beat the market. It was created to exit a manipulated market. When you ask, how high will Bitcoin go? You're viewing it through the lens of an old system. The very system Bitcoin was designed to replace. Those who understand Bitcoin ask a different question. If I hold my money outside the control of banks and governments, what does that mean for my family over the next 10 or 20 years? That is a question of sovereignty, not short-term profit. Rule 2. No private key equals you own nothing. I want to be direct, especially for those who lived through 2008. Money in the bank is not always your money. Bitcoin on an exchange is no different. When you leave Bitcoin on an exchange, you are handing control to a company and hoping they will always do the right thing. But financial markets do not operate on hope. They operate on incentives and risk. FTX, MTGOX, and Celsius didn't collapse because of bad technology. They collapsed because of people. Just like every financial crisis in history, self-custody is not an extreme act. It is simply taking responsibility for your own assets. Rule 3. Bitcoin is not an asset. It is a system. This is where the mindset of winners and losers fully diverges. If you view Bitcoin as an investment ticker, a speculative bet, or a number on an app, you will behave exactly as you would with a tech stock. But Bitcoin is not a company. It has no CEO. It has no balance sheet. Bitcoin is a parallel monetary system. Every transaction you make sends a message. I do not need permission to use my own money. Rule 4. Unused Bitcoin is dead money. A currency only exists if it is used. That is one of the most basic economic truths. When Bitcoin sits idle in wallets, the world treats it as digital gold, something to hoard, not something to run an economy on. The spend and replace strategy is simple, but it completely changes how you relate to Bitcoin. You don't sell Bitcoin. You use it as money, then buy it back. This keeps the network alive and prevents Bitcoin from becoming a collectible for the wealthy. Rule 5. Don't let large institutions live Bitcoin for you. BlackRock does not care about your financial freedom. They care about controlling capital flows. If most Bitcoin ends up in institutional hands, while individuals only watch the price rise, Bitcoin becomes a new version of the old system. Winners understand this. If you don't actively live with Bitcoin, someone else will shape its future for you. Rule 6. Don't just hold Bitcoin. Become the network. Bitcoin is not powerful because of code. It is powerful because of people willing to verify truth for themselves. Running a node is not about making money. It is a declaration. I don't need anyone else to tell me what is true. A network is only truly decentralized when enough ordinary people are willing to stand up and protect it. I want you to pause here for a moment, because many people hear these ideas and think, it sounds good, but is it actually realistic? That question is completely reasonable. And that's exactly why I want to talk about what I've seen in real life. Not on Twitter, not on price charts. Bitcoin and the lessons from those who lived through crises. I once worked with a couple in their early 60s. They weren't aggressive investors. They simply did what the system taught them. Deposited money in banks. Bought bonds. Trusted that the rules wouldn't change. Then 2008 happened. They didn't do anything wrong. The system changed, and they paid the price. When I spoke to them about Bitcoin, they didn't ask, will Bitcoin go up? They asked, if one day we urgently need our money, who has the authority to say no to us? And that is the true essence of rule number 1. Bitcoin does not solve greed. It solves systemic risk. Why self-custody is a sign of maturity, not extremism. Many older people tell me, I'm not good with technology. Let me be very clear. You don't need to understand the internet to send an email. You don't need to understand engines to drive a car. And you don't need to understand cryptography to hold private keys. Self-custody is not an act of rebellion. It is an act of personal responsibility. Something your generation understands very well. When you hold your private keys, you are saying, I will not hand over decision-making power over my assets to an institution I cannot control. That's not paranoia. That's history. When you understand Bitcoin as a system, your behavior changes. Once you realize Bitcoin is not a stock, you stop reacting emotionally. You no longer panic when the price drops. Become euphoric when the price rises. Because you understand this, Bitcoin does not require your belief. It only requires your proper participation. Every Bitcoin transaction is more than a trade. It is a statement. I choose a system that cannot be manipulated by political decisions. That's why using Bitcoin matters more than showing your balance. Why spend and replace bridges ideals and real life. Many people worry, if I spend Bitcoin, I'll lose it. No. You're simply allowing Bitcoin to fulfill its role as money. When you spend Bitcoin and then buy it back, you are not sacrificing long-term conviction. You are keeping the network alive, proving that Bitcoin works in everyday life. History shows us this. Monetary systems that are not used are eventually replaced. No matter how good the original idea was, power always seeks centralization, unless people refuse. BlackRock is doing exactly what it's designed to do. It optimizes profit and control. The problem isn't them. The problem is us. If people don't self-custody Bitcoin, don't use it, don't help secure the network, then Bitcoin becomes something beautiful, but harmless. And history has shown us, systems that pose no threat to power are always allowed to exist. Running a node isn't about becoming an expert. It's about refusing blind trust. When you run a node, you're not competing with anyone. You're simply saying, I want to verify the truth for myself. In a world where everything is explained for you, that is a powerful act. Bitcoin doesn't need billions of people running nodes. It only needs enough people who refuse to outsource responsibility. I want to end this video with one very simple thought. Throughout financial history, systems rarely collapse because of a lack of technology. They collapse because people give too much control to too few institutions. Bitcoin did not emerge to make people rich faster. It emerged to return a question we forgot to ask a long time ago. Who truly controls my money? The 6 rules we've discussed are not an investment strategy. They are a different way of thinking about money, responsibility, and freedom. You can choose the easy path. Leave your Bitcoin on exchanges. Never use it. Never participate. Only watch the price. And hope that everything will be fine. Or you can choose a slightly harder path. Understand why Bitcoin exists. Keep control of your own assets. Use it as money. And participate in protecting the network you believe in. History shows us this. Those who choose the harder path earlier are often the ones who pay the least price later. Bitcoin does not ask for blind trust. It only asks that you take responsibility for your own choices. If this video helped you see Bitcoin, not as a price game, but as a long-term story of financial sovereignty, please hit subscribe and continue this journey with me. Through honest, deliberate conversations about money, systems, and how to protect the value of your life's work. I also want to hear from you in the comments. Backhand index pointing right, which of the 6 rules are you already following? And which one do you know you need to start? Not to argue, not to prove who's right or wrong, but to answer that question honestly for yourself. And if you know someone who has worked their entire life, yet still feels uncertain about their financial future, share this video with them. Because financial knowledge only becomes truly valuable when it is passed on, not to show off, but to help others avoid repeating the system's old mistakes. Bitcoin does not promise an easy future, but it gives you something incredibly rare in today's world: the right to choose. And in the end, the real question isn't whether Bitcoin will succeed. It's this: will you be a participant, or just a spectator of that change?